Hello, welcome back, or welcome if you're new. My name is Vix and this is my channel Goddess of Gore, where I like to talk about horror, thriller, fantasy and sci-fi books. Today I want to tell you about all of the books I've read last week, the first week of April, and I read some good and some not so good books. So let's get on with it. I thought I would start the month with something that I knew would be fun, and that was Pyramids by Terry Pratchett. This was absolutely hilarious. I couldn't stop laughing pretty much the whole thing. I'm still not sure if it was slightly inappropriate humour at ancient Egyptians, but it was funny regardless. It starts from the perspective of the character Tepik, a young man who is an apprentice at the Assassin's Guild. He's still not sure he's cut out to be an assassin, but even though he passes the test, he still goes home to the Jelly Belly after receiving the news of his father's death. His father, the king, has died, and now he must be the new king. His father is now a ghost, watching himself being embalmed and put into a pyramid, something he really didn't want. And honestly, his dad watching his people take care of his corpse is the funniest bit of the book. I really loved it. It was very 80s humour, which was just so silly. I couldn't stop laughing at it. Then I finished The House with Good Bones by T.Kingfisher. And if I'm perfectly honest, I didn't think very much of it. Definitely not my favourite T.Kingfisher book. So I may have to do a reread of some of her other books to cancel this one out. I feel like it was a post-lockdown book. It had very few characters, it was very insular, and somehow I felt like I'd just walked into the middle of a story. I don't know if that would make sense to somebody else. So, in this book we meet Sam, who is daughter to single mother Edie and sister of Brad. Now Sam was supposed to be at an archaeological dig doing something with fossils or bugs or something. And that got put on hold when someone found some human remains and they had to find the ancestors, give them a proper burial, blah blah blah. Anyway, she can't go home since her roommates have already sublet her room out, so she drops in on her mother. In fact, this was perfect because recently her brother had called and said he had been round to their mom's and she's freakishly acting weird. Mom is off. Sam thinks he's overreacting until she pulls into the driveway and there's a big arse vulture sitting on the mailbox, staring at her and staring at the house. Okay, she thinks, weird, but it's her mother she's come to see, so she lets herself in and boom, the house has gone back in time and it's decorated just the way she remembers it when she was a kid and they lived there with her grandmother. So the backstory was that Sam's dad was killed in a car crash and they couldn't afford to stay where they were, so they came to live with their grandmother, Edie's mum, while Edie worked her fingers to the bone to be able to afford a place of their own. Sam and Brad had the worst possible time of their childhoods while in their grandmother's care, but Granny died, they inherited the house and painted every room, bright colours, arty prints, beautiful. But now, back to white and pinks, old lady colours, and Mom? Well, she's acting like she's on high alert. She's lost so much weight and Sam begins to think that maybe Brad wasn't over-exaggerating after all. He wasn't exaggerating enough. The house rules are back to her childhood times of no swearing, saying grace before eating meals, and definitely no trash talking Granny. See, now I'm talking about it, it does sound really good, but I just didn't vibe with Sam. She was alright, but I didn't enjoy being in her head as much as the story was actually based. It wasn't very long though, but it did take me a while to finish it because I couldn't focus. I didn't want to be in that story. You of course may like it. After all, I was in the minority with the writing retreat. So then I began reading some of the books for the TransGirlApril readathon. I'll link my TBR video where I talk about a load of books by trans or non-binary authors in case you want to know more on that. So next I read and finished Transmuted by Eve Harms. This was a very quick read at just 71 pages. This was, as I said, for TransGirlApril, and I loved it. It was so gross at times that I couldn't help but laugh out loud. The body horror in this book was fabulously over the top. It was fun, it was gross, it turned weird, and it was a really joyful ride. So try not to spoil 71 pages. Isa is a very popular gamer YouTuber who raises the funds to get the face of her dreams. She hates the way she looks and she uses filters whenever she uploads. And she's all booked in to have her face, what she calls, feminised. But just before she's due for the op, her sister phones and says Dad is dying and he needs money for this miracle cure that will give him some extra time in life. It's a wonder drug and it's suspiciously just shy of the amount of money she's raised. This set me on edge. I really hate scenarios like this. My anxiety levels go through the roof and I see red. Isa has a non-existent relationship with her father. Her father refuses to accept that Isa is now living as a female and insists on calling her by her old name. So I'm there screaming, no! Don't give that man your money. But she's not like me, because she does. What is she going to tell her supporters? These people thought she was going to be doing some big reveal of her face soon. They gave her their own hard-earned cash to help her out. So Isa is now desperate. One day she's scrolling through social media and she gets a pop-up or whatever offering free feminisation treatment using new radical technology. There's no risk, etc, etc. So she goes for a little look-see. What has she to lose? And she's desperate. So she begins the transformation. What happens after that I'm not going to tell you. You'll have to read it to find out. Let's just say things take a turn that you wouldn't expect unless you're expecting a load of fun, and then you're getting exactly what you expected. Pet by Akwaeke Emezi was so good. It was so happy and joyous and beautiful. Life was sunny and joyful for Jam and her best friend Redemption. They had this friendship that had grown and moulded throughout the years. But when Jam stumbles literally on one of her mother's paintings, a painting of something ugly, a monster with feathers and claws and razor blades, she cuts herself so badly, and because she's bled on the actual canvas, she brings forth this beast from the painting. She calls him Pet, and he's here to hunt. Hunt what? Well, monsters, of course. Monsters left Lucille, the town where they live, a long time ago. Now, people called angels run the town and protect its citizens from the horrors of the past, and now all kinds of protectors are in place to stop the things that destroyed the lives of so many from happening again. But Pet says something is happening and he needs Jam to be a helper, an investigator to assist in his hunt. But when he tells her where the investigation has to take place, she thinks he must be wrong. The book was perfect. It was perfection in just so few pages. The story took no time at all to pull me straight into its world. Something that at first seemed so pure and innocent a story. At about the halfway point, it revealed itself for what it really was, a dark tale of abuse and retribution. The so-called purging of abuse, the monsters in the town's past, wasn't exactly the truth it has told to its people, and all was not good in Jam and Redemption's lives. But Pet was here, and Pet would fix it in such a brutal way. This story is so powerful and so beautiful that I just want to shout from the rooftops, everyone, read this down. Next was Fina by Nino Ciprini, another short book. This was another funny, so funny book. So anxiety inducing and so heartwarming. I did love the way the phrase "fucking Derek" was used to explain everything that happened that day. It was literally all his fault because Ava was covering his shift, and if he had turned up, then this wouldn't have happened to Ava at all. So Ava and Jules work at a furniture store not unlike IKEA, and just like the real IKEA, people can get lost very easily. News coming out. And you never exactly know which direction you are in the greater context of the building. So when a granny goes missing, a call comes out for her to return to the customer service desk and get reunited with her granddaughter. But it soon becomes apparent that something else has happened. Yeah, Granny has slipped into a portal to another dimension. Now I know what you're thinking. We've all felt like this has happened whilst in IKEA, but no, this has really happened to this woman. Ava and her ex Jules have to go into a portal and get the granny as the last employee rule, and Ava has to go because fucking Derek was the next last one in and he wasn't there, so she had to go in his place. So when the manager realised the granny had actually gone into a portal, they grabbed all the employees, put them in the staff room for an information video where someone called Dana and Mark explain how to retrieve the customer should a portal happen to open to another dimension in your store. Obviously, during the rescue mission, the two exes bring up all the things that went wrong in their relationship and all the things that was actually right. And this was the really sweet part. The ending of the story was really quite lovely, and I am curious to read book 2 in this series. The Companion by E.E Ottoman, described to me as a cosy book. Was it cosy though? I'm not too sure. Yes, aesthetically it was, I suppose, a nice cottage in a quiet farmland, mushroom picking and foraging. Cozy. There was talk of cooking and pickling and jams and that sort of thing. But there was also some heavy sex scenes that I was like, whoa, okay. Madeline went from shy girl to yes daddy in a heartbeat. She was in the middle of a polyamorous relationship, having never been kissed. It seemed that this girl was made of gold. Everybody wanted her. So everything about the book was the slightest of. A sprinkle of cottagecore, a dusting of mentioning being trans men and women, a fraction of a pinch of violence towards, and I quote, people like us. And yes, it was a short book, but it didn't tell me about the spice. It was heavy on the spice, and we all know that makes me uncomfortable. This book was fun and light-hearted, and I can see it appealing to people who like a bit of heavy breathing in their books. And not heavy breathing from being on an adventure chased by a monster, unfortunately. Peter Darling by Austin Chant. This was an unexpected retelling of Peter Pan. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Peter Pan. I know the story and all the psychobabble that has been said about it, blah, blah, blah. But this was new. This was fresh.
They're nice.
They're nice.
They're unusual.
They're unusual. They're nice. They're different. Yeah, all right.
And this was an interesting take on the story. So Peter has returned to Neverland to find it changed. Nothing is quite the way they left it, and that's because they've grown up a bit. So back in London, in the real world, Wendy plays with her brothers John and Michael, and wants everyone to call them Peter because that's who they want to be from now on. Wendy is, and always was, Peter Pan, and faces objections from the family. They want her to see someone about all this and put her head back in the game and get them married off. But Wendy goes back to being Peter in Neverland and seeing things from new eyes and with new dangers. They spy Captain Hook and see him in a new light, and by God, isn't he handsome? Captain Hook is the only person who has really missed Peter, and together they form a kind of friendship. The book talks about what makes someone interesting and attractive rather than just getting down and dirty. It deals with consequences and complex feelings. And again, although not exactly something I would normally read, it would absolutely work for fans who like that sort of thing. So that's all the books, 7 in total, but don't forget that most of these were short books at 200 pages or less, so they were quick for me to read. So although I would never believe that I could read that many, usually I had time off work and nothing else to do. But what have I started? I have started ManHunt by Gretchen Felker-Martin. This is like a weird version of Mad Max, I'm feeling. If Max was a horrible, cruel, murderous, angry feminist out to kill anyone who wasn't a cis woman. So far I've read that Beth and Fran are 2 trans women fighting for survival, literally being torn to shreds and stitching each other back together, eating harvested testicles, and God knows what else. After a run-in with a gang of dangerous women, they are now resting and trying to replenish their bodies after losing so much blood. They are terrified of the cis women, and they have every right to be. This is not going to be a happy story, and I think I will be sad at the end. So that's it. Thank you so much for being here, listening and watching today. I really appreciate your company. As ever, please like if you want to, and subscribe if you haven't already and want to stick around. Every wrap up I leave you with the best quote from my books this week, and this time it goes a little bit like this.
You may experience some unpleasant hallucinations. Let me assure you, you are perfectly safe.
Wait, what? Make some good book choices this week, my friends, and I hope to see you all again soon. Until next time, bye bye.